Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into a topic that's, well, it's crucial to our progress as a society, women and leadership.
Absolutely.
And, this isn't just about equal representation, like for the sake of it. It's about unlocking the full potential of, well, of humanity, really. And to be honest, I think we're missing out big time if we don't tap into that potential.
Yeah, no, you're right on that. The numbers really do paint a stark picture. Did you know? Just as of 2024, only 26% of parliamentary seats, and this is globally, are held by women.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a pretty clear indicator that we have quite a ways to go.
That's a staggering statistic. It really makes you wonder, how did we even get here?
Yeah.
What are the historical roots of this disparity?
Hmm. Well, for centuries, really, societal norms and even legal structures kind of relegated women primarily to, the domestic sphere.
Right.
Leadership, especially in public life, was largely considered a male domain.
So it was like a systematic exclusion, not just a matter of individual choices or preferences.
Exactly. Opportunities for women to lead were severely restricted.
Yeah.
However, even within those constraints, there were extraordinary women who defied those norms.
Oh, absolutely. History is full of these trailblazers. Cleopatra, for instance, ruler in ancient Egypt who outsmarted Roman emperors. Talk about defying expectations.
Queen Elizabeth III, navigating religious turmoil and political intrigue to become one of England's most, well, iconic monarchs.
Mhm.
These women demonstrated incredible vision and resilience in the face of incredible challenges.
It's fascinating how these figures managed to not only survive, but thrive in such restrictive environments.
Their stories are so important, I think, because they shatter this notion that leadership is inherently tied to gender. They
Yeah.
show it's about capability, strategic thinking, and a willingness to break down those barriers.
So how do their stories connect to the current landscape? I mean, have we made any real progress since then?
I think there's no denying we have seen progress.
Yeah.
Women are leading in diverse fields: politics, business, activism.
Uh-huh.
We have figures like Jacinda Ardern, who led New Zealand with empathy and decisiveness. Angela Merkel guided Germany for over 16 years.
And it's not just the political arena, right?
Right.
We've got Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, leading a global giant in a traditionally male-dominated industry.
Exactly. And then we have women like Geeta Gopinath, the first woman to serve as chief economist of the International Monetary Fund.
Wow.
It's clear that women are making their mark across sectors.
That is truly exciting to see these powerful examples. But I'm guessing alongside these successes, there are still challenges that hold women back.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. Systemic barriers persist even as more women rise to, leadership positions.
Right.
One major obstacle is gender bias. Whether conscious or unconscious, these biases influence everything from, hiring and promotion decisions to how women are even perceived in the workplace.
So we're talking about those deeply rooted stereotypes
Yeah.
about what a leader should even be like.
Precisely. There's often an expectation that leaders should be, assertive, dominant, even aggressive,
Yeah.
traits that are typically associated with masculinity.
Right.
When women display these same qualities, they can be judged negatively, labeled as, quote unquote, bossy or difficult.
Like they can't win. If they conform to traditional expectations, they're seen as not leadership material.
Mm.
But if they exhibit those quote-unquote masculine traits, they're penalized for it.
Yeah, that's the frustrating reality. And this bias doesn't just affect individual perceptions, it's baked into institutional structures.
Hmm.
This is where that concept of the glass ceiling comes in.
Yeah.
It's that invisible barrier that prevents women from rising to the highest levels of leadership, even when they have the qualifications and experience.
So it's not just about individual biases, it's about systems that are designed in a way that disadvantage women.
Exactly. And on top of all this, we still have the very persistent problem of unequal pay.
Ugh, it's mind-boggling that this is still an issue in 2024. But yeah, let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the, moral imperative, why does this matter so much? Why should we care about promoting women in leadership? What's at stake here?
Well, I think the reasons are multifaceted and compelling. For one, it's about tapping into the power of diverse thinking. Women bring unique perspectives and experiences to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Their different approaches to problem solving, communication styles, life experiences, all of these things enrich the decision-making process, leading to better outcomes.
So it's not just about filling quotas, it's about the richness and value that diverse perspectives bring. What else makes this issue so critical?
Well, there's also a strong connection between women's leadership and empathy. Studies have shown that women leaders often exhibit more inclusive, compassionate, and collaborative leadership styles.
'Cause, this isn't about being soft or weak, as some might suggest.
Right.
It's about having a deeper understanding of the human element, about building trust and fostering a more positive and supportive environment.
Precisely. And beyond the social and cultural benefits, there's a compelling economic argument for women's leadership. Research by McKinsey shows that closing the gender gap in leadership could add a staggering $12 trillion to the global GDP.
$12 trillion. That's an incredible figure.
It is. It highlights the sheer scale of the economic potential that's being lost when women are excluded from leadership roles.
So this isn't just about fairness. It's about harnessing the full power of our global workforce. It seems like a no-brainer from an economic perspective.
It really is. And finally, I think we can't overlook the potential for social transformation. Women leaders often prioritize social issues, things like healthcare, education, human rights, which leads to a more just and equitable society.
So it's not just about individual success, it's about lifting everyone up.
Exactly. Women's leadership has the potential to create a more inclusive, compassionate, and ultimately more effective world. Now, the question is, how do we make this happen?
That's what I'm eager to explore. We've seen the challenges, but we've also seen the incredible potential. So where do we go from here? What steps can we take to promote women in leadership?
That's a great question, and luckily our sources do offer some concrete suggestions. One of the most crucial steps is education and skill development. We need to ensure that girls and women have access to quality education and leadership training from a young age.
So it's about empowering girls from the get-go, giving them the tools and confidence to become leaders.
Right.
I like that. What else needs to happen?
Well, we also need policy support from governments and organizations.
Okay.
Policies that create a more level playing field, things like quotas for women in leadership positions, mentorship programs, and flexible work arrangements.
That makes sense. We need systems that actively support women, not just expect them to overcome these barriers on their own.
Absolutely. And then we come to a more, I think, complex challenge, tackling those deeply ingrained stereotypes about gender and leadership.
This feels like a much bigger societal issue, not something that can be easily addressed with policy changes alone.
You're right. It's about shifting the narrative, changing how the media portrays women, how we talk about leadership in general, and how we challenge sexism in all its forms.
So we need to showcase those positive examples of women leaders and actively challenge those outdated stereotypes.
Yeah.
What role can men play in all this?
Oh, men have a crucial role to play as allies.
Okay.
It's about advocating for gender equality, supporting women in their leadership journeys, and being part of the solution.
It sounds like it's a collective effort, a
Yeah.
shared responsibility to create a culture where women can truly thrive as leaders.
You got it. And finally, I think supporting empowerment movements is key. Organizations like Hiforsha, Women in Leadership Programs, grassroots activism, they're all working to advance gender equality and create a more just world.
So it's about amplifying women's voices and creating a movement that's too big to ignore. Can you give us some real-world examples of initiatives that are doing this work effectively?
Absolutely. One that stands out is the Malala Fund.
Right.
They invest in education activists and advocate for policy changes to ensure that all girls have access to quality education.
It's amazing how she's channeled her own experience into a global movement for change.
It is. And then there's the UN Women's He4Sure campaign. It's all about engaging men as allies in the fight for gender equality.
That's powerful. It's about men stepping up and saying, hey, this matters to me too.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that change also happens at the local level.
Right.
There are countless grassroots organizations doing incredible work in their communities,
Right.
like Girls Inc. They provide programs that inspire girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
That's fantastic. It's encouraging to see so many people working to empower girls from such a young age. These stories kind of make me think about the women in my own life who have, embodied this spirit of leadership. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, comes to mind. She was this incredible woman who instilled in us a passion for justice and equality, taught us to think critically, speak up for what we believe in, and never underestimate our own power to make a difference.
That's wonderful. It highlights how individual stories can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to embrace leadership roles. It's about recognizing that we all have the potential to be that spark for change in our own communities.
And that brings us back to the heart of this entire discussion. Women's leadership isn't just about women, it's about all of us. It's about creating a world where everyone can reach their full potential and contribute their unique talents and perspectives.
Absolutely. It's about embracing diversity as a strength, not a weakness, and recognizing that empowering women empowers everyone.
It's exciting to think about the possibilities when we break down those barriers and create a world where leadership isn't limited by gender, but defined by vision, talent, and a commitment to making a positive impact. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we have some truly inspiring stories of women leaders to share.
Oh, I'm looking forward to diving into those. Each one showcases the incredible strength, resilience, and impact that women are having on the world.
That's perfect. We'll be back after a quick break to explore these incredible stories and draw inspiration from their journeys. Welcome back to the deep dive. I'm ready to hear those inspiring stories you mentioned. Our sources highlighted some women leaders whose journeys really exemplify the positive changes we've been discussing.
They do, yeah. And each one is a testament to the power of, well, resilience, vision, and breaking barriers. Let's start with someone whose story has really resonated globally. Malala Yousafzai.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe she was just a teenager when she, bravely stood up to the Taliban, advocating for education for girls. And it's, well, an act that almost cost her her life.
It did. Her courage in the face of such adversity is astounding. And instead of being silenced, she emerged from that horrific attack even stronger, becoming a global advocate for girls' education.
It's incredible how she turned such a traumatic experience into a platform for change. She became the youngest Nobel Prize laureate, founded the Malala Fund, and continues to inspire millions.
Yeah, she really demonstrates the power of a single voice, even a young one, to spark these global movements. Her story is a powerful reminder that age is no barrier to leadership.
It really is. And speaking of breaking barriers, let's talk about Kamala Harris and her historic election as the first female vice president of the United States.
Right, that was a monumental moment. I think it really signified a shift, not just for women, but for the country as a whole. It showed that the highest offices are no longer inherently male domains.
Yeah. I remember watching her inauguration, and it felt like a collective sigh of relief, like a weight had been lifted. For young girls especially girls of color, seeing someone like them in that position, it must be incredibly empowering.
Representation matters. It's about visibility, about seeing yourself reflected in positions of power and knowing that those paths are open to you. Kamala Harris's vice presidency sends a powerful message about shattering glass ceilings and redefining what's possible.
It's about expanding our vision of what leadership even looks like
Hmm.
and who can embody it. And while we focus on these global icons, our sources also emphasize the importance of recognizing the unsung heroes, the women leading in our communities every single day.
Absolutely. These are the women leading PTA meetings, volunteering at shelters, running businesses, mentoring young people. They may not be in the headlines, but they're the backbone of their communities, creating positive change at that grassroots level.
Yeah. Their impact is often underestimated. They are building bridges, fostering connections, and shaping their communities in really profound ways.
Yeah, they're the embodiment of leadership in action, often without any recognition or fanfare. It's important to celebrate these women and acknowledge the ripple effects of their work.
You're right. We need to acknowledge and appreciate the impact of these everyday leaders. Their stories remind me of my own mother, actually. She may not be a CEO or a politician, but she's always been a leader in her own way. She raised 3 kids on her own, working multiple jobs, always pushing forward with incredible strength and resilience.
She sounds like a remarkable woman. It's a powerful example of how leadership really manifests in all these different forms.
Yeah.
It's not always about titles or positions, but about the impact we have on the lives around us.
Exactly. And I know there are countless women like her, women who are quietly leading, inspiring, and making a difference in their own spheres. It's essential to share their stories, to highlight the diverse ways in which women are contributing and leading.
Absolutely. It's these everyday acts of leadership, these unsung stories that often have the most profound impact. They demonstrate that leadership is accessible to everyone, regardless of background or position.
It's about recognizing that leadership potential exists in every corner of society, and it's up to us to nurture and support it.
Yeah.
So we've explored these inspiring journeys from global icons to local heroes, kind of highlighting these diverse faces of women's leadership. What I'm curious about now is how do we connect these inspiring narratives back to the larger picture? How do we turn inspiration into action?
That's a great question, and one that we'll delve into as we continue our deep dive. It's not enough to simply admire these stories. We need to understand the systemic changes required to create a world where women can lead without limits.
I'm eager to explore those systemic changes and understand how we can, collectively work towards a more equitable future.
Yeah,
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into women and leadership,
yeah.
from the historical context to the current landscape. I mean, we've explored the challenges, the triumphs, and the incredible potential that's waiting to be unlocked.
We have, and we've also been so inspired by the stories of so many remarkable women, from global icons to those making a difference in their own communities.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey. I'm left with this sense of uh, both urgency and hope. Urgency because the need for change is so clear and present, but hope because we've seen what's possible when we challenge the status quo and create space for women to lead.
Yeah.
What's the most impactful takeaway you hope listeners will glean from our deep dive?
I think for me, the key takeaway is that women's leadership isn't a niche issue or a special interest. It's fundamentally about the progress and well-being of our society as a whole. When we empower women, we empower everyone. We unlock greater potential, foster innovation, and create a more just and equitable world.
It's about recognizing that diversity isn't just a feel-good concept. It's essential for progress. It's about valuing different perspectives, experiences, and approaches to problem solving. And as we wrap up, I recall a quote from our sources that really encapsulates the essence of this episode. It's from former U.S. President Barack Obama. He said, "The world would be a better place if more women were in charge."
I love that quote.
Yeah.
It really gets to the heart of it. It's not about suggesting that women are inherently better leaders than men, but it's about recognizing the value of a more balanced and inclusive approach to leadership, harnessing that full spectrum of talent and perspectives that humanity has to offer.
And it begs the question, what can we do with this knowledge? How can we move beyond just simply acknowledging the problem and start taking action, to create that
Yeah.
better world that Obama spoke of?
Yeah, that's the crucial question. And while it can feel daunting, I think it's important to remember that change starts with each of us.
Yeah.
It's about challenging our own biases, speaking up against sexism, and supporting women in our personal and professional lives.
It's about those everyday actions that collectively create a more equitable and just society. It can be as simple as, amplifying a woman's voice in a meeting, mentoring a young girl, or supporting, women-owned businesses.
Right, and it's about staying informed and engaged, involved in the broader movement for gender equality.
Mhm.
Support organizations working to empower women, advocate for policy changes that promote equal opportunities, and hold ourselves and others accountable for creating a more inclusive world.
So as we conclude this deep dive, I want to leave you with a challenge. Knowing what we've learned today, what is one action, big or small, that you will take to support women in leadership? What ripple will you create in your own sphere of influence? Because those ripples, when combined, they have the power to create a tidal wave of change, a wave that can sweep away outdated norms and usher in a world where leadership is defined not by gender, but by talent, vision, and a commitment to making a positive impact. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.